everyone. Welcome. I know it's been a hot minute since I recorded anything. If you're new here, thank you for joining me. My name is Becky. I am on a weight loss wellness health journey using GLP-1, specifically Zepbound, as a tool to help me get things under control. My body has been through a lot. I've had some stalls with like skipped weeks, and I'm going to go into a little bit of discussion about stuff my body has been through in the past few months and where I'm at with exercise. So if that's something that interests you, stick around. So this all starts back in March when I was still living in a homeless shelter. Um, when you're in a homeless shelter and you're in abject poverty, you're in not just survival mode, but like super survival mode all the time. And germs, it's like a petri dish. It's worse than an elementary school. Um, I was very blessed to be there and not on the streets. I need to clarify that. Um, and maybe someday we'll address why I was there. But for now, just know that I was living in a homeless shelter for several months. And during that time, towards the end there, I caught influenza A, and I had a very severe case of pneumonia, which I did not know at the time. I just knew I was feeling poorly and I wanted to sleep and just do nothing. I didn't want to eat, didn't want to drink, just wanted to rest. That's all I wanted to do. And I was shivering and having cold sweats. And I got up to take a shower because I was like, I'm so cold, I need a hot shower. I turned the water to max and it wasn't doing anything. And, you know, I started leaking from my bum because of the flu part. And so I'm there like shivering in the shower, like cleaning this up. And I shared a dorm with 7 other women. So there's other people waiting for the shower. And I'm like scrubbing it down, shivering, can't breathe. I sat on the toilet and was just sitting there. And I was like talking to myself, like, breathe, you have to breathe, you have to breathe, you have to breathe. Except it wasn't coming out like that. It was like, and I saw my fingertips from about the mid knuckle up to the tip were blue, like actual blue. And one of the other girls in the dorm, she was like, "Do you need an ambulance?" And I was like, "Yeah." So I just nodded. The ambulance came and they measured my OSAT and it was like 51%, which most of you probably know, but that's how much oxygen is in your blood. It's not supposed to be below like 90. They really want it to be 98, 99, 100. Mine was 51. So they took me and they got me diagnosed with the influenza A and the really bad. And I spent 3 days in ICU and then 7 more days in A2, which is one step down from ICU. You're still pretty much in critical care, but you're not quite ICU. You don't have quite the rules. And then from there, they didn't want to, I wasn't going home. I was going back to the shelter. They didn't want to, I was still so very weak. They didn't want to just put me back into that hyper survival mode, where you only get served one meal a day. You're responsible for getting everything for yourself. You have to fight for your meds. You have all this stuff. You have to fight to get into the shower, etc. And also, it's a petri dish. They don't want to throw you right back into the petri dish while you're still technically healing. So they sent me to the skilled nursing facility and I spent 11 days there, which was the same skilled nursing facility I just got out of. And that was good because, you're having dizzy spells and you're so weak, but there's someone there monitoring the shower so that if you fall, there's someone there to catch you. I was able to self shower, but it was nice knowing if I like fainted, someone was going to be there. and I didn't have to worry about getting my meds and punching down food and making sure I was not saying the wrong thing to the wrong person, which I just kept to myself. I didn't get into fights. I pretty much just minded my business. Um, but I was grateful to spend that 11 days healing. And they did some minor physical therapies with me, like um, very, very minor, like walk down the hall at whatever slow pace you can do with my walker and walk back. And that's enough exercise for today. Um, there was like a recumbent bike that was actually pedal push, not pedal wheel. And they had it on like a light setting, and you just pedal push for like 10 minutes. And they had you do very gentle stretching with like one of those stretchy bands. And for a long time, I thought I was never going to be the same again. I thought I was never going to recover from the pneumonia and the influenza A, which I did. I got a lot better, and I went back to the shelter. And shortly thereafter, I was able to get into here, which is transitional housing. It's um, for some people, it's transitional housing so that we're not living in the shelter, but it's not our forever home. And for some people, they have challenges and it is their forever home because they've been evicted multiple times or they've been to prison or jail for fighting and drugs and whatever. So for some people, this is their forever home. And for some people here, it's transitional housing. I'm in the transitional housing group. So very, very grateful to be here because I probably, with having one lung, my left lung, and like this much, this much of my right lung, that pneumonia kicked my ass. And I don't even want to tell you what I coughed up. It looked like something out of the movie Slither. A couple of them. And I blame the shelter for that because as much as they cleaned, it wasn't the cleanest environment. It's a homeless shelter. You've got people coming and going. You've got a lot of alcoholism, a lot of drug use, a lot of fighting. And, you've got a lot of people who are still partially living on the streets. So it's a challenging environment, but I was grateful to be there. But I know I would have gotten sick again had I stayed and not been blessed with this transitional apartment. So shortly thereafter, when I was in this apartment, I got a pressure ulcer on my foot. And the story about that and what was wrong with it, I will link somewhere up here in the sky. Most of you has probably seen it already, but it's just about what was wrong with my foot and why I wasn't exercising for so long. And that landed me ultimately in the hospital a couple different times. It landed me in the hospital, and then I was there for about a week, and I missed my shot. And then several weeks later, I got a full-blown staph infection, and I was in the hospital. I was in the hospital part for 11 days, and then I was in the skilled nursing facility, the same one I'd been in before, because I knew how I was comfortable there. I knew how things ran, what to expect, what not to expect, what the rules were. And that's the one that I filmed videos in recently. I was there for 5 weeks with the PICC line in. My staph infection healed. My foot healed up really, really well. And silly side note, just a second. I don't care. Why are you texting me? Okay. Sounds great. Sorry about that. I had to take that. So I had the PICC line in for like 6 weeks. And my foot healed up. And incidentally, the day I got released, the Friday I got released, I did too much walking. and I got a blister on my foot, right in the center of the pad of my foot. And I didn't realize I got a blister. I just knew it was hurting. And then the next day when I got up, it popped when I stood up, and I was like, oh shit, it popped. And then I cleaned it with an alcohol wipe and the skin formed back and it was fine, all fine and dandy. And then like the next day I was a little too zealous with the washcloth on my feet, and I accidentally tore the skin off, and so now it's open again. I swear, I better not get another infection. I just want it to heal up. But that's not the point. The point is I got my PICC line out on Wednesday, October 1st. Excuse me. And I'd been home almost a week at that point, but I was still feeling really tired and just really, like I didn't have any energy, and just the smallest things took all the energy. So I didn't film any videos. And then the day I got my PICC line removed, the elevators at the hospital were broken. So I had to take a few flights of stairs up to infectious diseases where they pulled it out. And I had an asthma attack at the top of the stairs, and it was fine. Like I used my albuterol, and after several minutes I recovered. Excuse me. I'm thirsty. Just a second. Okay. Better. So I dealt with the asthma attack, and then that afternoon my chest felt really heavy and kind of achy, but I just attributed it to the asthma attack and I didn't think much of it. I just felt like that heavy and compressed feeling you get after you have an asthma attack and you're hacking away. And that Thursday, the 2nd, I woke up and I was in a lot of pain across both my clavicles, and it hurt to breathe, but it really hurt to take a deep breath, even though I felt like I needed to. So I just kind of let it be because I figured it was residual from the asthma attack. Friday, the same thing. Although it was hurting worse, it stopped hurting in my right clavicle, but my left clavicle, it seemed like it was hurting more, like getting worse. Finally, Sunday morning, it continued to spread, and it went down my arm and started to go up my neck. And then Sunday morning, I woke up and Snickers had coughed up a hairball. So I bent over and I was like, oh, and it hurt in my back a lot. And I was really short of breath, like just doing the smallest thing put me right out of breath. Even now. So I called Ask a Nurse because I was like, a friend of mine was like, well, with those symptoms, you really should go to the emergency room. And I was like, I don't want to go to the emergency room. I have been home from the skilled nursing facility for a week. I literally just got this PICC line out. I've spent enough time in the hospital for a lifetime within these past several months. But my friend was like, dude, you need to. So I called Ask a Nurse and we went over my symptoms. And I know that women, heart attacks and strokes, well, not so strokes so much, but heart attacks can be they can be asymptomatic, or they can just have different symptoms than the typical shooting pain down your left arm. But it concerned me because I was having pain that was going down my left arm and up into my neck. So Ask a Nurse said, my official advice is to hang up and call EMS. So I texted my friend and she was like, why aren't you calling EMS right now? And I was, I don't want to go. But I did call EMS and they took me to the hospital. They did a bunch of tests. They admitted me, got me into a room. They immediately did a bunch of tests. They said my heart didn't look like I had a heart attack at all. Um, and they did x-ray on my chest and they didn't see anything. And so they did a CT scan on my chest and they didn't see anything. And they're like, well, the good news is you don't have a pulmonary embolism. And I was like, yeah, that is good news. But they still wanted to look for some things because I had an elevated D dimer in my blood. And I also had elevated, I want to say troponins is what it's called, which is like an indication that there's been damage to the heart. So they admitted me and did some more testing. They did an ultrasound. And the next morning, the nurse came in and she's like, so you're here because of shortness of breath and a blood clot in your arm. And I was like, okay. Because the ultrasound had been done at like 11 o'clock at night. Nobody had talked to me about it yet. And like right then, the doctor came in and they're like, yeah, we found a 6 centimeter long blood clot, like right here. And so every time you try to take a deep breath, that's why it hurts. So they started me on Lovenox while I was in hospital, did some more observation, and then agreed to send me home. And they got me on the Eliquis starter pack, which I'm doing. And I'm still really, really, really out of breath. Just walking from one room to the other or walking 2 doors down to the laundry, just carrying a basket of laundry, not even like a heavy basket, but just a basket of light laundry. I'm like, and I'm really, really out of breath. And I feel like my lung was still healing from the influenza A and the pneumonia, because there was a couple times I was begging them to intubate me. I was having such a hard time breathing. And they had the entire team in there and they were preparing to do it, but I was able to catch my breath. That's how bad it was. I actually almost died. And having just the one lung, anytime I get a chest infection, it's extra hard on me. So I was wanting to get back into exercise and starting to do that. And then I got the ulcer on my foot from the pressure ulcer. And so I wasn't exercising because I was trying to stay off my foot. And then I was essentially on bed rest for 6 weeks while my foot healed and I had the PICC line in. And then turns out, and I'm like, okay, now I want to exercise. And I get this blood clot, which explained the pain and the difficulty breathing. So where I'm at with exercising is I am like a senior citizen beginner level of exercising. I do very, very light exercise and I do very short periods of time. I don't do like any kind of high intensity. I don't lift heavy weights. I'm not allowed to right now, actually, because of the blood clot. Even in the best of times, I have 2-pound weights that I use, just because I'm so out of shape and it's so slow going to rebuild your body. I used to be able to do, like, I used to work with 10-pound weights and do 10 push-ups in a row. And now I can't even do one girly style push-up. So I have a long way to go to rebuild my body and to get back into where I'm exercising like a normal person. So for me, like 5 minutes a day is something. And just the littlest bit, like what they would have me do for, what's the word, physical therapy while I was in the skilled nursing facility. That is the level of exercise that I'm at right now. And that is why, because I have this history of all these stupid things happening back to back to back and playing with my lungs one way or another. So that's to explain where I was, what was going on, why I was back in the hospital for a day or two. I think it was like 2.5 days. And why I have not been competing in the like 10 squats, 50 squats for 10 days. I do 3 squats and I'm out. I did buy a hula hoop. I haven't set it up yet. I intend to, but I want to film my first time using it, and I'm not going to do that today, maybe tomorrow. So I'm looking forward to doing that. I'm hoping that there will be results on my belly. And I did, as you saw during before all the fiasco of being back in the hospital, I did go to Old Navy, and I went to Meijer and bought a pair of shoes for exercise only, nothing else. And then I went to Old Navy and got a pair of pants to be like my tracker pants. And I took some like before photos, even though I'm not at my perfect starting point of 207. You can't really tell. So it's basically my starting point photos. And I'm going to share those in another video. And oh, believe me, I was like, I had to do 2 sets of photos because in the first one I was like scowling. I was like, so anyway, that is the medical update concerning where I'm at. I took my shot today, so I am still able to take my Zepbound. Everything's good there. We just had to add the Eliquis into the mix, and I'm just really out of breath very easily, and sometimes it hurts if I have to yawn or take a deep breath. Then I can feel it in my arm and in my clavicle, like, so yeah, that's where I'm at. If you made it this far, please consider giving a like or leaving a comment. I appreciate you watching, and thank you for being here.